right into it. This is the budget workshop. Topics for discussion. No brainer. It is the 2013 budget. So we'll open it up to council for discussion. So, Rich, you want to start? Leave it to the lead, Rich. I'll wait for you guys to take a shot at it.
So we should.
Thank you all. Sorry.
How about, Steve, you want to go over your intro sheet?
Yeah, if you want, I'll give a brief overview for the public. We're looking at a 4.9 cent tax increase. The average assessed value of homes is $174,100. You see about $85 increase in your property tax bill. Since $65,451, our debt's up over $600,000, with $140,000 of that being from deferred charges that were spent by a previous administration without the funds being there. Contractual increases for this year, the police patrolmen's and superior officers 2% raises. The rest of the CWA is in contract negotiations now. Our only capital improvements listed.
No one touched anything. That's the ghost in the machine there.
It's like interference.
You put your phone too close to it or something?
I'm muting one. Still loud?
Yeah.
About now. That's
Better.
better. There we go.
I don't know. Is it working at all? Is it working?
No.
No, it's not working at all.
I can-
What a funny guy, huh? Okay.
Obviously, we had a problem with that one last meeting. We'll have to call the
I don't do AV.
69,000 for the air conditioning. We had mold in the air vents upstairs, and then when they got in here, they ripped them all out. And I'm just going to put it out there. Previous groups here running the township never realized that you have to put them back in so it would work. We're hoping to recoup a portion of this through insurance because of the mold. As of 3 o'clock this afternoon, we were going back and forth on the telephone, and the insurance agent and myself never did connect. We're looking to do a shared service with the Board of Education for a front-end loader backhoe, and the second phase of the installation of motor vehicle recorders in police vehicles. Until last year, we were the only town in the county that didn't have them. And so far, we had one case that just came back from the prosecutor's office where we were accused of a ton of stuff, and it showed that the reporter exonerated everything that the officers did. The other thing is an automated fingerprint machine. About 7 years ago, we got a grant. Everything we do is through the computer and live to the state. So if you come in and you give us a bad name, we can run you. We'll almost know instantly if your prints are in the system. Federal and state laws are changing where certain offenders need palm prints now, and it looks like a cone that they put their hands around. Our system is, we got on a grant originally because of the amount of arrests we made. About 7 years old. To upgrade the system, we can do an $18,000 upgrade to a 7-year-old system. It's out of warranty, we pay service on, or we can buy a new system under warranty, under contract for about $28,000. So it makes sense at this time with the amount of arrests we have to buy the new system. And like I said, this one we got about 7 years. We're in our 8th year with it now. So I would assume, I guess, as far as computers go, that's probably it.
Computers is 5-year traditional.
Yeah, so it's, and of course the state mandates it, but there's no grant money, but maybe there'll be some grant money, but probably not. If it does, it'll go to the state police. And so that's where another unfunded state mandate. Sure, I'm glad Rose is in here.
Want me to call it?
No, please.
Sorry.
The other thing too I want to bring up, I was just looking, is the Department of Public Works, for some time, we had a crew. They were all let go, and then there was some private contracting done. One of the contractors was basically ripping the township off. I fired them in December. And I basically got rid of the other private contractor, after multiple planes sleeping in our trucks with our logo on it, pulling up to the park, just seeing people sitting there staring straight ahead like zombies. I went down into the Harold Avenue compost site one afternoon, and they're just sitting there, looking straight ahead. So, at what point are we wasting? And for less money than what we were paying, I could bring in summer people to cut the grass and bring in some seasonal people, which allows us to get a look at their work ethic before they're brought on as civil service employees. So, and that's where we're at right now. I mean, it's one of those things that, there's not a lot of wiggle room here. We're hoping, there's some movement down in the gardens, as everybody's seeing, and maybe, we can start turning it around. We have some issues with long-term debt financing, everything at the end of the year that'll maybe free up a little bit, but that's where we're at.
Okay, as far as the format tonight, would you guys like to go over this line by line? Or did you want to just have a general discussion regarding this budget for tonight, since this is just the first discussion on this budget, and we have not provided the general public the ability to look at the budget yet, because it's not introduced and it's a little confusing. In the past, it's been very confusing to go line by line prior to the budget being introduced, which allows the general public to go line by line with us. So, what's the will of the body here? Do you want to just have a general discussion?
I think it's a simple thing to do, is just go over what.
Just go over what you guys have is highlighted or whatnot, right? Yeah? Rich?
That's fine.
Okay then, so no discussion it is, and at this point, open it up to the council to discuss this budget as presented to us for review. Jason?
I'm sorry I'm a little late. Could I come back to me? I'm sorry. I just want to get my minutes together before I start. Thank you.
That's all. Lou, do you have specific questions?
No, I suggest you start, so in case we miss something.
No. Well, I'm turning this thing around tonight, folks, just so you're clear here. I'm actually taking a position tonight where I'd like to hear from the council, since I take much criticism for, the bully book, stuff and all that. So at this point, I'd like to hear from the council what their, what their points are on this budget, and go from there. I have some critiques that I'll point out. So, Rich, do you want to take something?
Sure, Rich, since that is the motive of the evening. My only question is, and I brought this up last year when going over the budget, as I haven't had a chance to thoroughly go through this line item, is in regards to our infrastructure funds for fixing our roads, streets, sidewalks, etc. Are we allocating the same amount as we did last year for that?
And just shy of any grants for some money freeing up from the west end, there would be very little road work at all other than patch. Like I said, hopefully, we get the debt financing, all that straightened out, then we'll be able to start either later year or next year with, we we have, I was just reading a letter upstairs from a resident on the road.
I didn't see, specific line items prior discussion about, certain grant writing companies, reserved to get them activated to start pulling possible grant for infrastructure.
Yeah, we
So,
can,
is that something
we have some money in here, some play that we can put in for that reason and then create a line item into that.
I think the requirement was to have like a number in there.
Yeah.
Whether we use it as one thing or another.
Right, I think 20,000 was the standard, talking to different towns and different grants that have in there. That's simply a matter of, and Josh and I discussed this, maybe transferring some funds from different areas of the budget into that.
Do we have, computers budgeted for replacement for this year?
Yes, and we also.
I mean, it looks like it's broken down to a bunch of departments.
It is, and what we also have is we have some money through other sources at no cost to the taxpayer, like the finance server just need to be replaced. We replaced that through outside police payroll. When a officer works a side job, the township gets a portion of that money. So, and then construction also assisted in replacing the Oprah server, so that was another low cost.
Now, the computer maintenance line items, is the pulled across departments.
Yeah, it kind of gets,
Kind of
gets
passed a little
shuffled.
across.
Right.
Okay. Where is?
Certain things, the only one you'll see like us, and I don't think it's listed as computer maintenance, is our New World system. I don't know how it's listed, but that is the police record system for the county. That's a fee, user fee that we pay to the county prosecutor's office to maintain it and run it.
Where do you have, for, computer replacement for 2013? For departments, like, upgrade workstations?
Well, we discussed that, and Brian's gonna give us a list and see where, and we're gonna see, Mr. Casey, I've spoke to him, he's agreed to replace some, as well as we still have money.
This may be adjusted between now and
Yeah,
then.
we
Okay.
still have as well as
Okay.
that outside, but Brian hasn't given me the list of what needs to be replaced yet.
Did he give you ETA and did he give you something?
I was expecting it last week, and then we had his other issues, and so I know as he's been going through the building, he's been working on it.
Brian who?
Brian
I'm
Fitzgerald
sorry, that's
from
Fitzgerald, the computers company.
Brian Fitzgerald's doing an audit is what, of some sort?
He's going through, and as he's updating all the software and the computers and the antivirus, he's looking at the age of the computer, the functionality of it, and seeing, what needs to be replaced, and, what needs to be replaced first, and what can wait, and things of that nature. There's a couple computers that they already did some minor updates to, they just needed some more memory, and it was, I think it was $35, they purchased it and installed it.
So he's looking at both software and hardware.
Yeah.
And it would basically be like an IT audit.
Yeah, just to see what we need, because I mean, we have some computers in the building that are pretty old.
Anything else, Rich?
Not this time, Rich.
Jason, you? Ready?
Yeah, I really don't have written comments at this point.
I mean, if you see something specific after you get home or whatever, shoot me an email or something, or I'll send it back out to everybody, so. Or if there's something you see specific, you want to see the paperwork for or something.
Anything else?
I have reviewed the budget the budget that they're anticipating introducing, and I did go through the expenses that we had through May. And most of the line items look like they're within reason to be able to cover the expenses through the end of the year. The only two line items that I felt that you might want to increase is one for administration, mainly because of the cost of the computers. And there's only one other line item for DCRP with having additional part-time people, that line item would need to be increased. But all the other line items were in line with what we've expended, to date from the
When
May.
you were talking about, when you said administration talking about for the website?
Right, for all of the, I believe their budget, the administration O&E budget is budgeted at 72,000. They've to date spent 74,000 with
Okay.
all the encumbrances for the computer systems, and you're gonna need to anticipate additional expenses through the end of the year. And that's
Just-
about the only line item that might need to be adjusted at this time, besides DCRP.
What is the acronym DCRP?
DCRP is towards the end of the budget. It's a retirement system for part-time employees. It's basically, it's on the summary sheet, it's on the third page, but it's actually 36,471. Right now, you've budgeted $500 for DCRP, and I think that was based upon last year's, it's a new pension system, and last year we didn't have many expenses for it, but now we are hiring more part-time people. So I'm anticipating that that might need to be increased by about $1,000. But that's about the only two line items that I think need any adjustments, especially that you might have a shortfall.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, Josh, didn't you, maybe we did, maybe I thought that I talked to you about this, but you and I, we talked between you, myself, and Casey, we cover that website?
Yeah, that was supposed to be split up to the.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Josh, Tom, Casey, myself talked, we thought between the three of us that we would split it between our budgets in there.
Oh, okay.
Just because we were looking at that and we wanted to leave that. I mean, that's something that we can work internally, but Josh was on board with UZ, Casey was on board with his, and
Yeah,
then
some of those
obviously-
purchases have been charged that way.
Okay, so I mean, that was basically what we're saying,
Construction
is that
UZ.
administration line item, or we charge that to, we talked to department heads amongst us where we found money in our budgets, so we could split it, and it's not all one hit, and, you know, reality, you know, Casey's portion of it and UZ's portion of it aren't taxed, you know.
Your budget you're referring to now is with your police chief
department.
hat.
Yes, police
Okay, so it's
department,
PDS.
yes.
And my question that I was, that I'm looking to raise is, part-time employees get a pension.
Yeah, believe it or not, some of them are eligible, like, the class 1 and class 2 officers are actually enrolled in PERS, and, you know, obviously crossing guards are, and some of the seasonal guys, depending on their, you know, no medical benefits, no, but there is a small portion, the way the governor does his new pension system.
It's a state mandate.
Yeah, like Chris said, 1,500 will cover us for what we, you know, what we have for the year. It's very small portion.
Okay. Anything else, Christine?
No, they were the only two line items that I felt needed any adjustments. On the revenue side, the only thing that I thought, maybe since those line items may need to be increased, I did notice because we are no longer doing police service with the motor vehicle, Josh did take out that revenue line item, but because of the contracts not being signed on time last year for the DMV, a lot of the revenue, about 6 months of the revenue did come in this year. So we did take in around $40,000 last year, and you can budget up to that amount for this year. And we have year-to-date received $48,000. We should be receiving more because it's going through May or June.
Yeah, June.
But I think you could actually increase your revenue comfortably for that $40,000. So if there's any line items between the administration that might need to be increased in DCRP, that could be used for that, and also to maybe bring the tax rate down slightly.
Thank you.
So you're referring to revenue from the motor vehicle for our outside?
Yeah, that was,
Police budget?
yeah, that was gonna be in my report to you. The state and I, after talking, I basically you know, it's tougher and tougher to cover it. Um, just the way the shift coverage is, I'm down on special officers, part-timers, half of them left to go to Camden Metro. So I'm, you know, filming it became a problem. Lumberton was helping us out, but not to the tune that we thought they would. And if there's overtime on road detail where a street needs to be closed, or overtime because of a sick day or something like that, I have to fill the street with that first. I asked them for more money, because I told them if they gave me enough money to hire 2 officers, I could cover it all the time. You know, and obviously that would benefit us, and they've opted to go with private security like they've done in some other agencies. So, you know, our call volume will increase there, obviously, because we have private security, they call for everything, but, you know, there's only so many people and bodies that go around, you know. And of course, that came in, we had the budget finalized, everything was done, we went through it, sat down with the auditor, and the next day the state called, and I called Josh, come down here with a computer, here's a problem, you know.
Alright, so going back to Christine was just saying we could increase the revenue and in effect
Yes,
come after.
because
Extra.
what had happened was, last year, the contracts came in. Denise Rose felt that, now these are the same contracts that the town had been signing, they just had different dates on them and amounts of money. She felt because it said between the state of New Jersey and the Mount Holly Township Police Department, that it was incorrect and the whole contract should be rewritten, because the contract has to be between the corporation, which is Mount Holly Township. So she didn't sign them, sent them for a legal opinion to pay for them, that said in so many words, yeah, you're right, but this is the way it's been, because the state basically said you can either sign them or leave them, we're not changing them. So they sat around on a desk, and I don't think they got signed till what, October?
Right.
October maybe, I don't know, September, October, and obviously the
The
state's
revenue
on,
came in.
the state's on a different budget year than we are, so that's why more of the money came through, so that's
The
what
money
Chris
came
is-
through, started coming through in January
Okay,
for the prior year.
hey, there's a bright spot for you.
But the money's, it is gonna discontinue now, since they're going with private security.
Right.
So, how do we have a line item of revenue if they're?
Because the
it's
way they're.
next year?
Because we have been working it since January till now.
Okay.
So that's why, so there's that 48,000 that came in for the first part of this year, because they're on a different fiscal year.
Right.
We're on calendar, they're on their state year, so in reality, theirs goes July 1 to June
July,
30th, so
yeah.
we have January to whenever Chris gets the last wire transfer of it. And she said so far, did you say 48? 48's come in, you said?
48's come in, but you can only budget up to what you received from the prior year, which was 41, so
Okay.
if you put in 40,000, that's a comfortable revenue line item. The rest would be an overage. or
Going
surplus.
forward, that would be it. So, we won't see any revenue source from them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And in the future, you might not have that revenue, but you also don't have that expense on the budget side also. In
Well,
future years.
What expense would there be? We were making,
We would
I
pay
was
the
told we
police
were making
officers for
money.
the hours that they would work at the DMV.
Right.
It would be charged to the police salaries and wage line item.
Until we got reimbursed.
Right.
Right.
But-
You have a revenue on one side, and then you have a
Right.
disbursement on the other for the same.
Yeah, I have that, but I've been told consistently over and over again that we were making money off of MVC, the same as we would off of PSE&G, Verizon, American Water, that,
We're still
Right,
making
we
money off
were,
of them
yes, we
after.
would, the revenue line, the revenue, we would receive more money from them than what you would say that you had budgeted for. There was usually we weren't spending as much as we were receiving from
Receiving,
them.
right.
That is correct.
well, then how is the statement that you just made a few minutes ago correct when you said we would have a reduction of expenses by not providing the service anymore? That's where I went into this one, I went to that
Well,
next
you have a
question.
reduction in expenses and you have a reduction in the revenue. Also in future years, you will.
Okay,
Both will be reduced.
all right.
You will lose that benefit of receiving additional money that you did receive over the last couple of years that we have that agreement.
Because the township does make money off of it, like, you know, with road details we receive for the car, right, that's built in.
I mean, I really
you
wouldn't
know.
have a problem if Verizon did a couple road details every day in town.
Well, you know, I can't work in town, so, you know, that went out.
Doesn't have to be you, it can be one of them other guys with a
Well,
truck.
no one, it was assigned to me. And the budget's been destroyed, so, you know, they're gonna go to voice link now, so. Anyhow, that's, you know, there. Okay, what I had was not specific to this budget, but specific to, why, we're looking at a tax increase, and I covered a couple of things with you. And one of them was the sale of township property. We have the old construction office.
Yep.
Might be looking at something there.
Mr. Shin stopped in yesterday. He took a look at it. You know, we're going back and forth. Obviously, you know, the last appraisal we had was before the flood. And I'd like to stay with that appraisal, but I think we may have to get another one because it's kind of gutted. The other thing is, I can't think what the name of the company is, but across the street, Burlington County Property Management or Property Management Burlington County, they own a place on Buttonwood Street. There's a small tract of land there that the township owns. It's supposedly not buildable. We had a appraisal done last year on it, came in at 5 or 5,600, something like that, or 6,500. But I was just advised tonight that that land may actually be bigger than what was appraised. So tomorrow I'll pull out the tax map, take a look at it and see, and then if we have to get a new appraisal on that, if it's worth more, well then, you know, obviously we're gonna want more. They wanna buy it because they rent the property right next door, and the people want a little bit of a yard, and I think in one of the emails she sent me about it, maybe a driveway, you know, because that end of Buttonwood Street is, you know,
Be ideal for a
on one
driveway.
side. So, like I said, I was prepared Monday night to say something to you guys about the 5,000, and then Richie told me that, fresh my memory back in the meeting, Mr. Donnelly had said that the lot's actually bigger, so that was just prior to this meeting, so I gotta look at the tax map and actually see. So we'll look at it and see if we need to get a new appraisal, we'll get into it, and if they wanna buy it, they can buy it.
And once upon a time, and I have it in a file somewhere, you know, I was provided with an inventory of all properties in the town, and we have slivers of land, you know, here and there, and I would like to see the township make an effort to, you know, approach the adjacent property owners instead of waiting for them to come to us.
I mean, that's
you know,
fine, I
if they're
know,
interested,
I did
but-
see, I know it's here somewhere, and we probably have to update it, look at it, but I mean.
Unless you have a contract in hand, you can't anticipate it as revenue.
So
Right.
that's the
You
problem.
have to look at it towards next year's budget.
Well,
would
we
be
could
nice.
put it in for, you know, for next year, if we go through and some of these small parcels, I mean, you know, we're maintaining them. You know, well, okay, we're trying.
And obviously, we had the work session last week, 2 days ago, on, you know, the energy issue, and there's definitely a savings there, and I'm looking forward to, you know, on Monday,
I was gonna,
discussing.
you know, I might not have to have anything for you guys on Monday. Chris brought up the one thing, he brought up this,
Well, that would.
I was
cover-
gonna bring that up to
would
see
cut expenses.
what your pleasure was with, that MX or Amex.
It's not a binding thing.
It-
We can pick
You
it
know,
up.
the municipal government one, I mean, what's it hurt to give him
I would love
the
to.
bills and look at it and see, and then, I mean, you know.
Tell me what.
Yeah, he said we'll come in.
They'll do it, and then they'll say, oh, look,
See,
we'll save 50%.
Just to recap, Jason wasn't here.
I'm
We have a
sorry.
couple of different things.
Yeah.
EMEX is a company that provides a reverse auction service just for the municipality. It doesn't go township wide. And they'll look at it and give us an idea of what we can save as a municipality without any commitment. And that's what we're
Well, we'll
discussing
give-
right
we'll-
this minute.
we'll
It's
give-
not binding.
We'll give them the bill, they'll pull a history, and then at the next meeting, they'll come with their laptop, plug in the bid, and it'll come up right then and there. And we can choose right then and there whether we want to proceed with city money if the bid is low enough to save the municipal township level,
Yeah,
costs.
between, like he said, savings between 5%, I forget what the high number
Or
is.
like 5 and 16%.
But when you're looking at, 16,000 here for street lights, $3,000 here, $2,000 for this, you total that up per month between street lights, traffic lights, and other, things, things we pay for. I mean, 5% is 5%, right?
Every bid counts.
So, I mean, I gotta be honest with you,
And it's not binding, so why not take a look at it?
I mean, I'll call a guy tomorrow, to be honest with you, I'll get copies, Chris of the bills, and I mean, we're not signing anything, we don't need any official action yet.
Right, we don't need any official action. And is that the will of the council to take a look at that? We don't have Dwayne here, but it's nothing binding,
Yeah,
so I don't feel like
absolutely.
we're cheating him out of a vote.
In a way, it's like
Right.
it sounds.
And like I said, the guy, it was pretty neat, the
It's
guy
good.
showed us a sample how the auction goes on his computer right in here.
That's what he's.
And it was pretty neat, he'll bring it right here to the
And they're-
meeting, so
they're
everybody's.
one-year things, so like if we choose at the time to go for it and save money, then if we don't like the way it worked in the year, it's the way
We
that.
drop it.
And just so you know, we stayed, because you were at the energy strategy session with Rich and I at the county, and, the question was put, how does it affect the overall aggregation, issue? And it's not a deal breaker where the municipality going into this deal with EMEX would,
It's gonna be my
right,
question.
wouldn't knock that out. There's various answers to
Because all we
the
were
rates, yeah.
speak with that meeting, all we had to do was sign a letter saying that we would be interested, and we didn't have to sign.
Which I think
up
we should
now.
still do.
Which I
right.
would still be
Right.
for.
Yeah, I think, and I'm gonna, we can cover that on Monday. I wanted
Yeah,
that on the
that's
agenda.
fine.
So we'll cover that right now. This is to go with this budget, and this budget will be affected by our revenue on by the expense of the electricity. So you have the
I'll reach-
consensus.
I'll reach out to him tomorrow,
Okay.
and I mean, we'll get started, and, see what the
Yeah.
timetable is.
And that cuts an expense, which is something that affects this year. We also had, it was in the paper, Alan brought it up, I brought it up a couple of years back, and there was no bites on it, but now we see a follow-up article regarding the revenue from field advertisement and naming the fields, all right? And I was thinking that if we were to go that route, would that money then be able, because we're funding the rec fund, what is it, 17,000, whatever the amount is for the rec fund this year. If we could project, within, some kind of ballpark, what kind of revenue bidding out, doing what they did, the fields, then we could reduce that line item and dedicate that fund to the rec. And, that would, I'm just throwing that out there because it was brought up. I brought it up years ago, and, when no one here was actually on the board, it was, Gibson, Belton, and Donnelly that made the statement that the advertisements on the field were something that the ball teams could do whenever they wanted, and that was, let them keep the revenue, and that was their deal. And yet I was approached and referred them to you guys, about advertising on the field. I don't know if those guys ever got back to you over at the VFW, what's the guy,
Al?
no, the little guy.
Larry? No,
The mustache, little guy with the mustache,
No.
lives over on Shreve, does the baseball.
oh, Joe.
Joe, yeah, there you go. I apologize for not remembering his name. Joe and another fellow approached me in the VFW about that advertising stuff. I said talk to Jason Jones and Lou Brown.
He has not reached out
Okay.
about that.
So, but at this point, it's been in the paper. Now, the issue that I didn't bring up before, I never thought of it, is the actual naming of the field. Although I did make a couple of comments in the past that if a millionaire, in town wanted to throw their name on that field and give us some money, hey, why wouldn't that be a go? But that revenue there,
I have no problem with the naming of the field, but as far as the fence on the fields, I mean, that money keeps these non-profit organizations as far as the Little League's going, and baseball, because the sponsors come in, they give money, it keeps the costs down for the registrations to keep the kids coming back. because, I mean, right now, a lot of numbers in this town for the organizations are down. And if we go and take more money that organizations out of their pocket, we're gonna lose organizations in this town, in my opinion.
And I hear you,
So-
and now, but how about these fields across the street then? If we're gonna have the policy then, that they can also advertise and.
They do.
Oh, okay.
They
All
do,
right.
they go out and they get their advertisements for
Is there-
to put the signs.
Okay.
The cost comes out of the league's budget. And they go and have the signs made, they hang the signs, they put them down, and then there's a renewal for signs for the following year or new signs. And it just keeps a little bit of money coming in to keep the company afloat, which, I mean, it's to speak on the Little League, right on Monroe Street, that money goes to pay the electricity, because that, and even though it's township property, the Little League pays the electricity down there, and they maintain the fields, they do all that just to, take a little burden off, so if we're taking money out of their pockets, it's may cost us in the long run, because now it's gonna put back to the township to cover those costs. As far as naming the fields, that's fine, because none of the fields are named. I mean, you'll see a majors field or a minors field sign up, just so people, when they come, they know which field they're supposed to go to. But yeah, as far as naming the fields,
So maybe
to get revenue,
maybe we
that
could
would
move-
be.
Yeah, we could
that's-
move on that, and then that could offset some of the rec budget, whatever we bring that in, we dedicate the name of the field's money to the rec account and offset whatever comes in there.
We're assuming right now that if that money's there, we haven't had a rec department or rec relationship in the holiday during those winters. We can't afford to take that money away from us now if we have it in the budget, if we want to go forward.
If we go forward now, what I'm saying is that if we put those fields out to bid with a deadline, before this budget is adopted, we get whatever money we get from that. This budget, I'm not sure when do we've passed budgets in October.
Well,
We passed
we're
it-
already late, and I'm waiting, every time I get a letter from the
We're
state,
always
I'm
late.
waiting for the,
Right.
yeah, but, I'm not gonna go into, whatever, it shouldn't be, but it is, and this is where we're at. My take on the whole thing is, say you get that money in this year, I mean, that's just more money in the pot towards it,
Right.
The other thing is, most of that money would be going into the recreation trust fund that really has nothing to do with the budget. And I don't think you should really hold up the budget for anticipating revenue. If you receive it into the recreation fund, it has absolutely nothing to do with the budget appropriation. Occasionally you do have, because your recreation trust fund doesn't have a lot of money, you might budget for recreation expenses, salaries, wages, or other expenses. But if you have a program like that and you do receive revenue, as soon as you receive the revenue, you will have access to the funds, and it has nothing to do with the actual budget document. So you really shouldn't hold up the adoption of the budget for that purpose.
Here's a question for you, and I don't know, Lou, Jason, you guys, I don't know. What do you think a field, like name a field, what do you think the value of that is? I mean, I'm just
I've been
curious.
waiting to see the
Curious
results.
curiosity.
We'll wait and see what they're getting for theirs. The article said they were getting, quite a bit of interest. But let's just say it's 5,000.
What are you talking, I mean, what township are you talking about that's
But-
doing
Yeah,
this?
I'll
I
as
think-
much,
Because you gotta look at the
Sure.
facilities that they have and compare them to the facilities that we have.
let's use
So
the
it's not
term.
our town.
To be honest with you, our facilities aren't the best.
Well, let's say it was 5,000. How many fields do we have?
Monroe Street has 5 fields.
There's one,
Ironworks
two,
has 2 over there,
and
2,
one-
three,
three.
4 softball, 2 softball fields, 2 baseball fields,
and one over
and
here.
then 5 over at, so you're looking at about 9 fields total.
Let's just even say it's $1,000 a field.
Grant, one of the fields, I'm not exactly sure if it's,
Well, if it was $1,000 a field, that's $9,000. Budget's what, 17? That's more than half of what's budgeted right there.
And realize also too, that 17 you're talking about, a portion of that covers our kids for summer rec.
Summer program,
That-
which came, and a portion of it,
Right.
but doesn't that get offset from the Deerwood Country Club sports event?
Depending, we're waiting, I sent them a letter, I'm waiting to see how much they give us.
Another thing that I brought up in the past was, you know, a challenge to the commitment to the rec budget was, other towns have dedicated a percentage of their tickets right to the rec fund.
We need tickets.
When I brought it up, there was no interest for it, and I lost
Tickets
track
were-
of the article, so.
No, tickets, we're asking.
Your municipal tickets, when you write out a traffic offense, all your traffic offenses.
You can't do that with traffic offense, you could do it with municipal
Municipalities,
ordinance.
okay.
Okay, I just never saw, you can't say, believe me, you did that to state, they gotta have their cut. I can't remember the last time somebody from the state was helping one of my guys write a ticket, but, you know, with the municipal ordinances, or they call them special complaints now. Yeah, I mean, pretty much, you know, I mean, we used to write all the handicap under the municipal ordinance, because basically the town spent all the money, the state came down and says, no, you can't do that.
So you're saying that's not allowed?
Municipal ordinances, if we go out, like housing enforces something or something like that, that's a municipal ordinance, yes, that, the township receives that money, but if I write you for running a stop sign, we get a portion, the state gets like 40-some% of it, or whatever it is, and, yeah, there's a breakdown on everything.
So if we approve the smoking ban ordinance, the money that's generated from that could be then donated back to the rec.
It would have to be spelled out
Spelled out.
specifically in the ordinance.
In the ordinance,
So,
no,
yeah, so then
I'm
this
just-
way, right, the judge, when he assesses a fine, for certain things, you'll hear him, there's a, you know, $1.50 for the EMT fund, $2 for the bulletproof vest fund. You know, in this case, he would be, you know, X amount of dollars to township, you know, X amount or whatever percent to recreation trust, because if it's a person's second or third offense, the fines are.
What about clean up after your dog violations? That would be another.
Yeah, I mean, I you could probably do it any municipal ordinance, I would think. I think it's all.
Right in front of my house.
What's that?
I have a sign right in front of my house. It's like a daily routine.
Well, that's, but that's what they're talking about, you know, cleaning up after your dog, not getting enforced. Well, it's, you know, I'm grasping because again, as I grasp, you know, every year, and also, when I was on that side as a resident, you know, a tax increase of $85 per average home, you know, that has to come from somebody's pocket, all right? So, I'm gonna throw out anything that which somebody throws it past, you know, I'm gonna bring it in here.
Believe me, there's
And
not.
when, you know, people look back and they review, you know, as silly or, you know, off the wall as the suggestion may be, the point of the suggestion is to save the taxpayer money on their tax bill, while at the same time replacing that tax revenue with another source of revenue, so that we can still keep the services exactly the same.
Right. Believe me, there's
Halifax
not one of
service.
us here that's happy about $85, and I mean, considering that over expenditure, what did we start at, 260, 240?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was like 240 or 260, and between Chris, Josh, Denise, myself, the auditor, we got it down to 140, and there was nowhere else to take money from. I mean, we were pulling and transferring, I mean, so that original over expenditure was up to 260, which would have meant we would have had to pull off, because, you know, there's basically what it's at now, 140 is 2 cents. There's 2 cents on right there. You know, and then you include, we got some other debts, things, it's just, you know.
Recycle awards.
You know, I spoke to different people about, a lot of towns are, you know, night shift has started here, so it really wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've talked to different towns about this recycle awards and a lot of rewards. A lot of towns are doing away with it, just because of the cost of it. And there's been really, in some towns, a lack of
Participation.
participation from the residents in it.
I thought we already did away with that.
No.
Yeah.
No,
We talked about it, just like I was reviewing another thing today, and I said, I thought we did away with that. And I looked at it and I go, well, here it is, nobody read it, and we didn't do it. But this is one of those things where, you know, I mean, my personal opinion, and this is why I was gonna bring it up, I mean, we should do away with it. I mean, it's cost us money. I don't know, I guess there's a way I could check with the county to see, I say county, but OTC, to see what our usage is for the township.
Yeah, they could, even Kathy, I've asked Kathy about it in the past, and I present, that question.
So
Yeah,
I-
How
previous-
many people using Recycle Bank? As on the website getting coupons?
Yeah.
I think I use it myself the first 6 months it came out, and then haven't looked at it again since.
Well, my wife actually uses it, and I'm gonna be in hot water.
I was told that it was gone.
My wife uses it, and she said, she
Yeah,
asked me
that
not to
door's
bring it up,
waterproof,
so I'm
too.
gonna be in trouble with my wife now
You didn't bring
when
it
she
up.
sees Lewis's thing. But the fact of the matter is that it's, when I brought it up last year,
I could've sworn last year we wrote it out.
no.
We talked
No,
about
No,
it.
now that I'm thinking about it,
Kathy
I think Kathy
said, Kathy said it's still an incentive to reduce
Yeah, she said-
our cartage by
but the
increasing our
program
recycling.
wasn't available anymore, I think was what she said.
That's what I thought. The
Yeah.
program was no longer available.
Yeah.
Program's still
Apparently,
available.
we're still paying for
My
it.
wife gets magazine subscriptions out of it, so.
Great, more to fill in the bin, so
Yeah, so then it goes into the recycling bin,
How much
it's
does it
perpetual,
cost?
it's a perpetual circle there, right?
How much does it cost the township for OTC, for Recycle Bank?
Chris, you don't have to know it off the top of your head, do you?
What is this?
The
Recycle Bank cost?
The what?
Recycle bank, recycle rewards.
Oh, I don't know how much it costs.
I saw it, it jumped out.
Yeah.
I was looking quarterly,
I thought I mentioned it to you, Rich.
It's in this list.
You know. Yeah. Remember it, then?
You're not. What do you find?
Told you it was gonna be that way.
It's in here.
It's in there, I know, I broke my mic fast.
How much
There were
was
numbers
that?
in there too.
A lot of numbers to find it. Good point.
I think in some instances, we might be charging some of the grants for that also, which we could use that for. I could check on that and run that for you for Monday, of what we spent.
It's not under recycling times, right?
No,
No, that's-
but we might be charging those expenses to recycle, not the recycling funds grant, but clean communities or other grants that we might have.
It wouldn't be,
I mean, is it like near the land, a couple thousand, is it 10,000?
I would say it's $1,000 a month.
I keep,
Say what it
something
is.
tells me, and this is gonna sound weird, this number like $794.
A month, that's pretty,
it's got a 7.
right on there.
Yeah,
It's got
I mean,
a seven.
because I remember, no, I remember looking at the, I remember seeing the voucher and going, this is a waste of money. But of course, for the life of me, I can't find it.
You see it when we're approving the bills, you see it.
Right.
So if it's in there as a grant, and we wouldn't see it when we're
I'll run a
approving bills
report
unless you're.
for
Okay.
them for Monday, and then
I'll run a
they'll see
report,
where
and
it's
what I'll do
charged
is-
and how much the cost
If
is.
you email it to me, I'll email it to them and put a hard copy in it.
Okay. Another issue would be, the compost contract we have. How are we making out with switching that off, doing some shared services?
Well, you know, it's funny with the shared services and, you know, I see that West Hampton, I happen to see where they dump theirs in a pile out by the park. Out there, Grand Locust Park, because I drove back there to see what was there. You know, it's almost like with the composting, that nobody cares till the fall when the leaves come out.
Well, there's two things with that. We have, not only do we have the fee that it costs to make,
15 a year,
right?
15,000.
But we also then have the land being tied up when, that's a nice chunk of land. We're talking about solar ordinances and solar. Well, I started to, have Kathy look into
if we can put solar on Green Acres, because that's Green Acres. And I never did get an answer, I'm not quite sure if we can put solar on it, but if we can put solar on it.
Compost sites, Green Acres.
You know, that's Green Acres, nice sign right there when you go down the driveway, it says Green Acres. There was a challenge to if we could use it as a compost site by a person, and Kathy, said that person was completely wrong, in the environmental group at the time, and that we could use it as a compost site. But here on the left-hand side, as you start to descend, there's
And
this
now you
sign.
say that, I'm thinking, of it,
But anyhow, so there's two different issues there. There's, can we save money by doing it someplace else, which is a savings on the revenue right off the bat, or I mean on the expense, I'm sorry.
That's right.
And then there's the possibility that we may be able to do a solar project there,
How big of a lot of land is
you
it?
know? It's a nice sized piece of land, the actual acres.
3-4 acres,
Like
probably
36,
that,
I don't know.
you know. for that
Big enough
area.
it's big enough to fill up quite a bit of compost there. You know, it's gotta be a few acres.
Yeah, I think that open area is probably 3.5.
But are they turning the compost so it doesn't catch fire? I mean, that's basically.
We just had another inspection last week and we
Smoke,
passed.
you go down there anytime.
Because
smoke.
the last inspection, a contractor had dumped a bunch of concrete and bags down there, and I got a fine, not a fine, but a notice that we didn't correct it. And I called the guy that handles it, he was all wound up because somebody was down there dumping it. But yeah, they do, he goes down there with his machine and turns. And the other question I did have from a resident about it was, because in the past, we used to allow the residents to take the compost.
Right, that's been an ongoing thing.
And, you know, one of the things I was gonna talk to him about was, you know, could we maybe, and I realize he takes it probably in terms of profit, but could we have, you know, maybe a day where the residents can go up, you know, spring, fall, whatever they're gonna use it. If they wanna get it, go up and get it, you know, it's on them to get it out of there. So-
They claim that, they've claimed in the past and many times that that's come up, that response back has always been that we would have to give them more money then, because that's, you're exactly right, that's built into his bottom line.
Right.
And, we pay more money, so in effect then we're now paying for compost for the residents.
And I mean, and believe it or not, every year that goes out for an RFP, and every year it's the same company, the same guy, nobody else,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
know.
And when when you talk to the guy, Alex, I think he probably runs it out of his garage.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it's.
But it's a
So-
line item expense.
Is somebody else, is West Hampton, they don't have this issue because they don't.
I don't know, I mean, I see a bunch of stuff dumped over there, leaves and stuff, so.
I got you, but I'm saying, why do we
You know.
have a monitored compost facility that other townships don't have?
At one point, you know, like we had East Hampton dumping there, and we were getting money from them. Why do we have it? At this point, I have to honestly say, I don't know, but I'll find out. Because that's been there for years.
It's the way it's always been. That's the
And-
answer I used to get. This is the
Well,
way we've
yeah,
always
but I
done it.
don't, I'll find out specifically why and what it'll
I
cost us to
get
dump
it.
it somewhere else. You know,
Well, you
we
know,
can dump
there's
it
also-
somewhere else, you
Well,
know.
they're also dumping it out on Jacksonville Road on the left-hand side, right after Cobb's Mechanic,
Mhm.
garage on the right-hand side. You know, before you get down to what used to be Five Corners until they reconstructed the intersection, Comical Corners. But anyhow, that's been the spot they've been dumping at. That's the spot that they said they were dumping at when we discussed it on the shared services with Lumberton. Steve, remember when
Mhm.
we went into that and they said they were using that location and they were just dumping there? You know, I guess maybe that guy who owns that property makes money off of that. There's another place on Sailor's Pond Road, but I mean, that would mine, but you would be talking the time to haul it all the way
Right.
out there, really, you know. But again, it's a two-pronged issue, you know, because it's an expense and there are possibilities.
I will do a report to find out
And find out
the
if we can put
history of
solar
it,
on it.
why we, you know, where we can go and dump it, the cost would be, and if we can put solar on it, and then I'll write something and get it back to you.
And this is something that I learned at one of the seminaries, and then basically, you know, for whatever reason, I decided it really wasn't worth it to try to bring it forward, but I'll throw it out there, because I don't quite understand that But there's something called deferment, Josh may understand this, because he's going to school for this stuff, and I guess Christine. Something about that you can defer the school taxes to after a certain point, and then you recoup some kind of savings, because the fiscal years don't match up. The school fiscal year, it doesn't match our fiscal year, the school fiscal year doesn't it go by the same as the state?
I don't know
July
that
1st to
much
January?
about it, but everybody I've talked to told me if you don't absolutely have to do it, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Just like the same thing with, you know, when they offered, you know, give you a break on paying the pensions, you know, eventually it's gonna come due. So, I
Well, it
mean,
was
Josh
the-
and Chris would know the ins and outs of the economics of it, you know.
What exactly, because this was like a big topic in Trenton at the thing,
There was
this
a couple years ago,
workshop.
but I don't think I think anyone that was doing it, they don't plan on people continuing to do it, or are
Because
they like
Medford does it
stuck
on a
in it?
regular basis, I believe.
I don't really know that much about it, we've never done it. The schools are on a different fiscal basis than we are right now.
And for the Board of Ed meeting member in the ordinance, it does not apparently, according to all the people at the meeting, does not affect the school in any way.
Well, that was my next question,
Because
how does
their,
it affect the
because their
schools
budget is a
operating?
different year than our budget. So,
I mean, we
it's a
gotta
matter
pay
of
it either
keeping
way.
the
It's
money
not-
longer, something to do with keeping the money longer. Anyhow.
More money anyways.
I was reading a couple articles, news articles online about towns, and the governing body of these couple communities in South Jersey were actually pleased that they were in a position that they didn't have to do that anymore. So from what I've heard from towns and just what I've read on, it was one of those things where it was like, you know.
Well, the guys that are pleased that they don't have to do those things anymore, you know, they may be in a heck of a lot better financial shape.
I understand that, but what I'm just saying is it's always one of those things that's been looked upon, from what I've heard about it, as, you know, you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's gonna come due.
The way they presented it was basically like, you don't pay your credit card until the day that it's actually due, so that you can keep the money in the account and actually do something with it. You know, when it's in a big enough piece, you can, like, if you're waiting, if you have a grant that you know is coming in, or whatever, you know, again, I didn't
You
focus
just
too
roll it
much.
forward, you just,
you know.
it's like cutting a check.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you ask me, I mean.
Just throwing it out there, you know, this is probably the reason why I didn't bring it bring it up before, you know, because I figured there would be some other side to it or whatnot, but now
Well,
we
you
are
would have
getting
to, I mean, before you even consider, you'd have to know what the advantage of it is. Unless, you know, and I don't know that we're giving, you know, $10 million a quarter, or whatever that tax collection basis is. If you're able to invest that short term, or even long term, if you're rolling forward, and so you built up, you know, $500,000, and you're investing $500,000 safely, and then you're rolling it forward, you're only gonna use the first quarter to kind of defer it. And then that money would transfer into an account. The money that created the investment would be then paid out to the school, holding back any money that was interest that was made, and then you would defer the next payment. So, I mean, you're only deferring one payment.
The regional school does that to some extent. We had made an arrangement, this was quite a few years ago, that we don't pay the school taxes in July and August, and then we do pay a larger payment in September. So the schools do work with us on what months our revenue starts coming in from the state in August, and we work that out with the schools. So you'll see that in July and August, we don't pay school ERB appropriations to begin with. So it is a modified form of an agreement that we just worked out among ourselves, that they really didn't need the funds in some time, and that, so we hold on to those funds, even though we're collecting them, we don't pay them until September for RB, the regional schools.
So we're already doing something with
Or
that.
doing something similar to that, right?
But yes, it's a large sum of money, the way rates are right now, you're gonna.
Well, you see the payments, when we see
Yeah,
them
what I'm
transferred in the
saying-
trend, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're like $338,000
Yeah,
out
but
there.
to invest $338,000 in a short-term vehicle for 0.2%,
You just sounded $300,000.
No, I said 0.2%.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you think you're
Nobody's paying
2%.
2%. Nobody is. And if you find them, let me know. There is no interest rate out there right now. So unless there's a vehicle to do that, I mean, you're just muddying waters. But if you can find an advantage for it, you were at the seminar, did they tell you what the advantage, or, you know, tell you how to find out how to do it? I mean, I'd be interested in making revenue.
I've got paperwork on it I could share with you that, you know, I've been bringing paperwork back and, giving it to Steve, and I gave some stuff out the first time around, and, you know, that was EMEX, and it took months to get to that point, so, you know, I just wanted to hold it now until this budget thing, you know, this budget work session, throw it out there because it's, you know, it pertains right to what we're doing right now. You
Well,
know,
if
we've
there's
got a lot
a-
of other things we've been working on, so this was the timing on, you know, that kind of discussion.
Well, I'm saying, if there's an advantage to it, we just have to find out what that advantage is.
Well, yeah, I've got my notes, I'll dig those up and I can share what they were talking about with, you know. But I was hoping that if I mentioned it, that
Somebody would know.
yeah, that it would be something that, you know, would already be, you know, well-known, tried and failed or whatever, you know, that there would be some form of feedback with it. But that's my list of, at this point, of, you know, issues that I have as far as where we need to try to increase revenue, decrease expenses, to decrease that tax increase. Yeah. All right, let's go back to the council then, and Rich, what do you have?
I know this has been talked about in the past, Steve, I'm not sure what the actual numbers are, but I know what we pay as far as trash pickup and the disposal costs for the trash are rather large end of the year. Businesses in the township seem to be able to throw whatever they want away as much as they want away, and as well as neighbors that I see being people on Pine Street trying to do it, and my neighbors 2 doors down, looks like they threw all their construction material out there, and bulk item and what about, you know, reducing the amount that's picked up as far as bulk items and things, and having dumpsters for businesses that they require to do that, instead of us fitting the bill for all this stuff?
Well, we've just discussed it before for downtown. I mean, we can draft ordinances that require businesses to do their own trash collection, and they could go together, you know, and get a dumpster however they want. I mean, you know.
What parking spaces do we take up for that?
Well, I understand that.
You know, I'm just.
Ask a question, I'm answering.
Yeah, I mean.
Separate truck.
Yeah, it would be up to them, it's like a private,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, that's it. You know, where they-
I mean, I think what it's,
Do you think, I mean, we're looking at businesses now, let's look at businesses that, generate a large amount of refuse that don't already have a dumpster.
Well, you know, there is and I don't know because I did read it, I don't know what the cutoff is, there is a size business center that is required.
Sure.
Because I did read when some ordinances on this, when we were talking about tipping fees. You know, most of the places, believe it or not, we have problems with are a couple of the smaller restaurants in town. And we've gone down, tagged them with code enforcement, because, you know, by ordinance, you can only put X number of bags out, it has to be this, and, you know, they just don't wanna comply. And you know what, I guess it's cheaper to come in and pay the fine than it is to,
Maybe we need to stiffen the fine.
Well, Mugshots weren't they redirected to their own?
well, they were
parking?
one because of the, you know, apartment building, and, you know, the problem was, you have to, I forget what the number is on apartments, and the former manager told them, you gotta pay, you gotta do this. I read the ordinance, and I said, no, they don't, there's only X number of apartments there. You know, so I said, they really don't have to, you know, I know this was kicked around a few years ago, about downtown, and maybe a couple businesses getting together and doing it, but, you know, most of the businesses, you know, use our back. You know, they bring it down and use the back dumpster back here, or put it out. I mean, occasionally there was a business we had that we saw happening, sent code enforcement out, dumping boxes in our trash instead of recycling, and it's, you know. So it is it is a problem, and it would save, I mean, for me to actually say without taking a look a couple days of trash, how much we would save in tipping fees, I don't know, without actually looking at it and seeing.
But it's not just the businesses, I mean,
Right.
like I said, you have neighbors that put out like
Well, it's,
6 different garbage bins with everything from sheetrock to wood supplies
Lane.
and everything else in there, and it all goes every Friday.
well, it's, you know, Central Jersey's there are a lot of things, because they miss streets, they miss houses in the middle of blocks, and we gotta call them. But one of the issues is, you know, they're not taking some of that stuff, but I encourage all neighbors, you gotta call us and let us know on trash day, because we will go out then, and, you know, we'll talk to the homeowner, you pull it in, take your construction stuff out, or we'll issue them a fine, you know, and sometimes, you know, the trash haulers, they won't tell, the old trash haulers would tell us, hey, there's a move out at this address. They would call in, this new crew doesn't. So unless somebody sees it, like we talked about the Pine Street, the carpet, we had already, you know, that morning I saw it when I was out and about and notified, you know, code enforcement went over there, but, you know, it's a continual problem. That's why I just encourage us to say, you know, call when you see it, because if we get out there before the, you know, trash company comes, we'll make the people take it back. You know, I mean, we had the same problem, I was gonna lock down the recycling thing a couple Saturdays because somebody kept dumping construction material in the cardboard recycling out in front of the garage.
We got cameras on that, I thought we talked about cameras.
They are, but the way that is right up in the front of the garage, the angle's not, so,
Hmm.
you know, we did some adjustments and,
So now it's been correct.
yes.
You know, we do have, on the next work session, we do have the user fee, impact fee, issue that we're gonna have info on from George and his associate Caitlin. And I believe part of the user fee, impact fee, possibilities address garbage hauling and another items. You know, I haven't seen, and I don't think any of us have seen what, you know, they've come up with. It might be a good idea, Steve, to ask them if they could forward us that, like, now, you know, whatever Caitlin
Well,
came up
did you get
with.
the letter that Caitlin sent out?
I don't know, if it came
All
by
right,
email, I
it'll
haven't.
it'll be in your packets if it
You
wasn't
know,
email.
We haven't seen that.
The other thing is, along the lines with trash, there's a disconnect between George and myself in the office updating that one ordinance. So I just updated it myself, he's just gonna review the wording on it, and we'll move it about the receptacles. Because now I'm getting more calls than just Josh is fielding calls now.
What they've been talking about a neighborhood watch and stuff
Well,
like that.
I mean, a lady on Harmon, right?
Harmon.
I mean, she's been after the township for 3 or 4 years for this, about people leaving their buckets out front, you know, so, you know, a lot of it is where you have the big problem with it is your apartment buildings. You know, I mean, they're just throwing wherever, using the recycling is, so there was a disconnect when I had asked, hey, when are you gonna get this back to me? I'd email her, why haven't we seen it? So we got that straight, that's, we're moving that forward. I mean, that, you know, goes along the lines of trash and updating how much you can put out and, you know.
Well, this is, I'm gonna digress for a second here off of the purely budget intent. The meeting, the neighborhood watch meeting, you'll get notes from last night. There was, you know, consensus of the group that there's an issue with, the trash hauler that we have now, as well as the recycle, you know, OTC, making very little effort to, stow the cans back and pick up anything that blows out, you know, in particular with the trash trucks, only running one guy on the tail and one guy driving, and classically, you always have two hangers,
Not to,
you know.
like I said, not to get too far off topic, but they have missed entire streets. They've missed 2 houses on, so,
We start at 5:30 in the morning.
you know, I have
Yeah.
the one
Even
guy's
before a,
number, and, you know, usually on Fridays, Friday afternoon, I'm fielding calls from residents and calling. You know, so, I mean, this just goes back to the old, sometimes cheapest bidder, lowest bidder's not always the.
Well, OTC as well.
Yeah, well.
Stuff blowing all over the place, you know, but, again, if we have a contract, we have a contract, and if we're not, and we're the customers, and if we're not satisfied, then they either, you know, do a better job, or, you know,
I spoke to the owner of the company
hey,
twice, and that's, you know, I basically told him if the missing of the house continues or giving residents wrong information continues, that I'm just not gonna pay him. You know?
there it is. So I digressed off for a second there, but that's always been, you know, a big issue, Rich, is the cost of hauling, you
Well,
know?
there's a couple, I mean,
And,
put it this way,
we've gone to once a week, you know, we
No,
used to have twice.
I understand that. I mean, once a week, twice a week. But I think it comes down to the amount that gets put out. And I do drive around like everyone else, and you see a lot put out there. I mean, I know this may sound off the wall idea, but perhaps, you know, 2 garbage buckets full, you know, per pickup or something. I mean, some towns go as far as charging you to go pick it up. I don't think we should do, but, you know, I know when I used to live in Freehold, it went from twice a week to once a week to you can put 2 garbage buckets out every week, put as much as you want in there, but that's it. Put it inside, it'll get picked up. They check if you got grass clippings in there, they're left. They don't get counted there because they get wet, heavy, stink, and that adds to your tonnage at the end of the year.
The other problem too with that is if you overload them, they're not gonna pick them up
Because they're too heavy.
because they're too heavy, and they're just gonna sit there, and then you're gonna have the people calling
That's-
complaining that they're too heavy.
My ordinance is 65 pounds, and I see some of these people who buy the big buckets, you know, like a recycling go out, and I'm here to tell you, they've never, in the summertime, worked the back of a trash truck and tried to lift that, so.
I have the 2 that are almost that size because they have lids that don't come off, and
You know, like the ones that look like recycling
they
buckets.
look like recycling buckets, but I don't overfill them. I use 2 smaller ones too.
I know that part of the ordinance is, it can be this actual, not only the 2 limit, but the size of the can, 32 gallon.
Why don't you know, I'll pull that ordinance down, we'll just take a look at it and see if there's some way we can look at
Because if we can, you know, keep them out of service, but restrict either the bucket size or have some enforcement, where we need buy-in from, obviously, the pickup company to know if, hey, this bag obviously has grass in it and sticks and stuff, it shouldn't be in here.
Right.
You know, don't pick it up. I mean, I know like in Jackson, New Jersey, my sister-in-law used to live there, they'd go around and if they felt it, they'd slice it, see it, leave it. Give a little note saying, sorry, we don't pick up grass clippings. And then after the numerous amount of times it happening, they actually were in contact with code enforcement.
Right.
And they come out and you get slapped with the fly by trying to get rid of it. Make a compost, go bring it down yourself and recycle it, but don't put it in the trash. I mean, I don't know how much you're paying for that, that gets picked up.
Well, we've had one particular landlady, you know, come in and flip about fine, but, you know, at one point, we were pretty hard on not taking the move out, you know, the move out, without that sticker being on there, you know, and finding them. You know, but I look at this issue here as something that it just takes behavior adjustment on the residents' part. So, you know, I don't think it's government's being heavy-handed with looking to enforce, you know, these type of issues, you know. When we're talking about no out-of-pocket cost on the residents, it's just a matter of them caring a little bit more about what they're doing with their garbage, you know, where they're putting their cans, you know. It's one of those ordinances or, you know, those violations that I've always, you know, ranted about. It's one that can be corrected by the homeowner and or tenant at no expense. So shame on you if you get a ticket and because you didn't want to clean up after yourself, you know, or not, you know, put so much in, you know, or break these rules. So, you know, I actually have no problem with, you know, that type of code on, you know, that type of
It's
ordinance.
just a really big
you
thing,
know.
when you look at these numbers are huge.
Oh, the cottage and stuff, it's always, it's in the county, keeps raises it every year, 2%. And says, hey, we're only doing 2%, and that's another issue, we won't even go into that. The transfer of costs on to us, but, anyhow, um, that seems like something that we could look at. It's not gonna affect this budget right now, apparently, but, it's something that's an overall, like I said, at the neighborhood watch, it was a big deal. We've heard this before, not only, how many cans, but the way that they're left about, and now also the issue with actually picking it up and stuff going around. I think we kicked that one around quite a bit. Anyone else? Dwayne, you wanna get into this?
Well, I had a couple of questions, I don't know if you guys covered them yet or not.
You're in good shape.
Under the, financial administration, 130,
There you go, you're getting
Did you
into
cover that
details
already?
now. No, we didn't actually go into details,
well, they're not,
so you can get right into it if you want.
well, I don't know,
You got 40 minutes.
well, I'm looking at this, and we're adding this year, and last year, we added a treasurer, deputy treasurer, which I don't remember those positions before, and I don't know what the explanation was for it in last year's budget. But that's one thing that I have a question
What
about.
page you got?
Well, this is,
Section 130,
130.
financial administration.
Financial
Well, we're
administration.
required to have a treasurer.
But why didn't we have one, I don't remember one like in 2010.
We've always had one.
Uh-huh.
It's just spelling it out in here, and money's been inserted in the budget, at which point you'll see we didn't pay or charge out. We had a deputy treasurer because some of our finance people go to different classes, and in order for them to hold certain positions, they have to have a certain title for X amount of months by the state, so they can continue their education and
Okay.
do the job that they
So
need.
we didn't pay it out in
Right.
2012.
Right.
No, we did not.
What's that?
We did not.
We did not, and we will not, we did. So is it our intentions to pay it out in 2013? Or we have to have it listed in our budget and not pay it out?
Well, I'm pretty sure we have to have it listed because it is technically a position by ordinance.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a position by ordinance, but not, is it under our charter, or, how far back did this treasurer position go?
I guess it's always been like that, hasn't it, Chris?
There's always been a treasurer.
There's always been a treasurer.
Because I've asked to see the mysterious charter, and I've yet to see it.
I've been asking, I'm not quite sure that anybody seems to know where to charge. We thought at one point it may be in Chris's safe, because that safe's about as old as the charter would be. But I don't think it's in there, is it? Our municipal charter?
No, I don't think so, but it is in the statutes of the responsibilities,
Right.
of the specific responsibilities for.
Now, Mr. Dowd asked to actually take a look at the original charter of the town. And jokingly, I had said to him, because that safe in your office is about that old,
It is, yeah.
that it's probably in there, but we couldn't seem to find it, so.
Simply because I've received more than one anonymous letter, Christine, that has said, for whatever reason, you need to take a look at the original charter of this township, so.
I'll see if I can, it's gotta be
One of those
online at the
anonymous
Administrative
resident,
Archives and Records
letters
somewhere.
type
Well,
of thing.
if we can't see it, how do they read the charter?
Oh, no,
And Chief, in that same department, the $19,000 other contractual items, 19,477, awful specific number. Is that something to do, can you tell me? It just says,
Yeah, that is the, that is the new, beneficial has always provided all of our banking services, without any charges. But recently, starting in 2013, they have fees that they're charging. And that's one reason why we're going out and looking for quotes from different banks, because of those fees. And that $19,000 is basically the fees for not only merchant services for credit cards, but also for the service fees from Beneficial Bank
And like I
to
just did,
maintain the account.
I think,
That-
I think it was last meeting, I don't remember, we've had a couple of meetings.
That was in
And you
North
said we
Star.
went
Yeah,
to another bank.
I keep saying Roma, but it's investors.
If we
investors.
did the quotes that we received, if we go with Roma Bank and change banks, they do not have any service fees for the township, and they do provide interest, and they will have armored car
Guard service,
service.
so
So that figure, if you make the change,
we are going to
bank.
make, I actually sent you
For
an email about
$20,000, we're gonna make the change.
right, so and I
Was
know
that on
Roma
the
Bank
agenda
is
for
being
Monday?
bought
What's
out.
that?
But I bet
Guys, Christine,
you
Christine's
should
still,
make that change before the end of June, because Roma Bank is being bought out.
Okay.
And they were telling me that if whatever benefits they give us, whether it's armored car service or the contracts that we set up with them now under Roma Bank, when the other bank comes in, that they will honor all of those agreements. So it is something to look at.
Yeah,
but,
we really couldn't find, and then in the 11th hour, the manager of East Hampton told me, hey, I just got this deal
Mhm.
with Roma, give them a call. Chris called them, and they take all your paperwork, took a little bit to get back to us, but last week she came back with it, and then I just sent an email, I'm like, let's do this and get moving with it, because then there's, there, I mean, look what we're paying,
Right,
19,000 for banking fees.
okay.
Which
So I'm
would be
glad we talked
savings.
about it tonight, so that we can have it on for,
So
so
that'll
we've
be-
only got 2 council meetings before the end of June.
Oh, we're gonna add another one.
so,
Whatever we gotta do to save 20 grand.
So a resolution to have, do
I
appoint a
actually
bank.
thought you already
But banking
switched to that.
resolution, changing banking.
What did you
No,
bring it up?
because we had to do all,
9,000.
Chris had to do all the paperwork, we had to do a resolution.
Right,
Because
we
we got
have
half
been
a year
paying,
moving
half
along,
of this
it's
has already
just,
been
we gotta-
expended, because
the
we're only
change
up
is-
to May.
Okay,
and it's been
okay.
What'd you say?
I actually thought we were done with it, so as soon as.
Well, we
you
just
said
got that last quote in,
We just got it
and
last week.
or beginning of last week, so by the time, we talk and let's do it,
That's
it's.
a reduction.
We also received bids from TV Bank.
Yeah,
Well, you're only
right there.
talking about half of it, because we've already expended
Right.
half of it.
Ah,
So you're only looking at saving 10 grand.
still 10 grand. That's a tenth of a cent or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Um,
10 grand.
that, I mean, that explains that, and, the other contract alignments that went from 0 to 19, it just accelerated kind of fast. The chief, legal fees in the UEZ, were, they went up like 12,000,
We
from
s-
5,000 to 12.
Carter McKay charged us a lot of money last year.
What,
Well, but this is in next year's budget, this isn't last year.
Okay, I understand that, but I still have to anticipate the same kind of legal costs.
We're also dealing too with 6 different people we had sent the letters to for the loans that were behind, so, that's going to, we're in current legal because of people defaulting. We had to do some more work on one of the loans. It's just an all-around increase in all.
Okay, alright, so you're anticipating the next, I mean, I heard somebody say Parker McKay, where you said Parker McKay charges a lot. We no longer have them as solicitors, correct?
So the fees are much lower, and anything that's not incurred with the UEZ will go back into the UEZ. You're getting revenue from the UEZ account, so it's offset.
and that's what I was gonna ask, the UEZ is paid for by the UEZ, isn't it, out of UEZ funds? So that's a wash, in effect.
So if we don't use it, they'll go back into the UEZ account.
None of that comes into our budget though.
That doesn't affect the tax rate.
Right, that doesn't affect the tax rate, that's the jackpot right
So the administration of it, the director, the program monitor, all of that doesn't affect our tax budget? Is what you're saying? That's all
Yes, that's-
self-funded?
That's right. There's a revenue line item and a budgeted line item that agreed.
Okay.
there. What page are you on there?
It was on.
119.
First one.
Oh, back to the front. We're not looking forward to it.
I was flipping through when you asked me if I had anything, but, trying to remember. Chief, I know I reached out to you and had a couple of them, and a couple of them were explained
public events, we had discussed some of the things that
Right.
Josh has talked about doing and setting up and getting moving forward. It's another thing that's UEZ also, I mean, that's, you know,
Okay, I think that was, you know, I did talk to the chief earlier, and, you know, to manipulate what little money that we really have control over is very difficult for us. I mean, that's always been an issue with one, you know, with every budget that I've taken a look at, outside of employees. There's very little money that we can manipulate, very little. The only other
Till we
thing.
start seeing some revenue from the Albatross down the road, I mean, that's really how it's going to be. You know, until we get developers in here to start looking at some of our, you know.
And I find it, you know, I find it difficult without being in the building every day and looking at bills that come in, and, you know, I find it very difficult to argue whether $1,000 in, you know, a department is adequate or too much for office supplies, or whether or not, you know, miscellaneous expenses in a department is too much at $750. You know, we're manipulating $750 that we're not there to see how it's spent or if it's spent.
And that's the thing, when you look around the building and not being here, like, you know, we see the office supplies and you just, you know, we try to get the best deal we can on what we have, but I mean, good majority of the departments in this town, well, everybody except Public Works, we do a lot of paper pushing. A lot of, you know, computer, and as much as we want to go paperless for stuff, and everybody retain this for X amount of years, print this out and send this here, print, you know, do that, do this. So, I mean, with the exception really of Public Works, every department here is just with office supplies, and the prices are ridiculous, to be honest with you.
The legal department, 155, as I was looking through that, I was looking at township solicitor, and I was saying that, you know, we had budgeted last year 160, we paid twice that, and then we're back to budgeting 160, or I'm sorry, we budgeted 65, we paid twice that. We're back to budgeting 65 again this year for the township solicitor. And did we ever get a signed contract back for the township solicitor?
I had asked for it, and I followed up again today when he.
So the answer is no?
Yes.
So we are in the 6th month of a contract, and we don't have a signed contract?
Yes, I mean, obviously the mayor would sign that, and in our contracts file, I did not find one, and speaking with the mayor, he didn't remember signing it.
Okay, so we will not pay another bill, I'm assuming, and I'm hoping this council's on board, because that's ridiculous. And our solicitor's job is, I'm pretty sure, to review our contracts and make sure that they're signed, right? All except for his? Okay, but back to that.
What page are you on now? He's.
155.
155. How can we, and based on the bills that I have seen come in since the beginning of the year, we're gonna blow this $65,000 out of the water because the contract that we haven't seen is pointing to miscellaneous or township solicitors, quote unquote, and then special projects. And it seems like everything that we're doing in this township now is a special project.
Well, and you gotta look at like some of the stuff, the way he charges, like if it's a redevelopment issue, you know, it may fall under that 299 item under gardens litigation. Things of that nature. You gotta look and break down how it's charged out and what he's doing. I mean, overall, say total, he may get $100,000.
Well, we're on record for more than $100,000.
Okay, but I'm just throwing a number out there for the sake, argument's sake. So if he reviews a contract for me, you know, we might charge it to, you know, 155,027. Then he would go to a settlement conference for something with Lou Capelli or Jim Maley. That would be charged down to 299. This whole total may be one thing, but where it's charged to is that's how it's broken down into the budget.
I got you. There are two categories in which his bills, you're saying, may fall. What I'm telling you is that the bills that I have seen, that I have not agreed to pay since the beginning of the year, fall into more than those two categories. Everything is a special project. Everything has been a special project. And that's where the contract may clarify it for me, and maybe I could agree to pay the bills. But I've questioned this, and I questioned him the first night that a bill came out.
Those special charges of, let's say, each of the different bills that we
Projects,
get in, that we,
yes.
besides which of the regular bills that we receive, all do go to that same number, that 027. If you would like in the future, these budget line items that we have set up, you can add or subtract from that. If you would like in the future for those bills to create another line item so that you know just where the special.
No, I don't think I don't think another line item is necessary. I mean, special project, you're a solicitor. I mean, I don't know what a special project is unless there's a special project. But to write an ordinance, or to write a resolution, that's not to me a special project. To
I
me, that's a
will,
township
I
solicitor.
talked to him again about that, I will follow up tomorrow morning, so we have one for Monday night, so everybody can, you know.
Have what
get
on
the
there, his
packets.
contract?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the mayor would have to sign it.
Well, certainly, and then maybe we need to review the, the request for proposal and make sure they kind of match. I mean, that's what we asked for, right? So, I mean, but I think we're gonna blow this $65,000 out of the water based on what I've seen.
Well, the other side of the coin too is, like I said, I don't wanna trample on anybody.
We've expended, oh, I'm sorry.
I don't pick up the phone and call the attorney for everything, I can pick up a manual or a law book and read it.
No, I got it,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I've seen charges in the past, looking at some of the Parker McKay stuff, I'm thinking to myself, you gotta be kidding me, you called an attorney for this.
Well, I agree, I agree.
And I understand what you're saying, so I'll get the contract, we'll look at it, and we'll, you know.
I mean, that would be my expectation, is that the bills would be less than they were last year. And what I've seen, we're on record to surpass what we spent last year. And based on what the comment you just made, seeing as how you're doing a lot more than we had, than folks had done previously for us last year, the bill should be less. I mean, if you're doing more of the solicitors.
We've spent year to date, for contractual services, 44,000.
44 contractual
services alone,
Contract services for the township solicitor, 44,000, correct?
year to date.
You're saying under 027?
027.
Okay.
So your expectations of using those funds, the
So
65.
for 6 months, you figured you'd double that.
Well, no, we're not,
Well, I'm just
it's
saying.
5 months.
But those are all his bills, right? You said you were charging all his
No,
bills
no.
on line item, right?
No, we're either using a 299 or 299 or
And
they're
any,
doing the
obviously,
027.
anything UEZ would
Looking
go
at the numbers
to
from last year,
UEZ.
you doubled what you budgeted anyway.
Well, we have a cap in that contract, the same as.
We don't have a contract, so we don't have a cap anything.
That's true, well, we need that contract then, though. So we are supposed to have a cap under that contract.
I thought so too.
So, let's get a copy of the contract, Steve.
I will.
I mean, that wasn't, it just reminded me again, going through the budget, that conversation that we had 3 months ago about a contract. Engineering, and I guess we can't just, that's 165. We budgeted 113,750, 12. We're at, we paid year to date 33,544, $100,000 budgeting this year. Is there something in there? And I'm trying to see where the major increase was. I guess the CDBG 20102, where we spent 569 last year, we're budgeting 15,000 this year. Is that in anticipation of something?
Remember we had that grant and we didn't use it?
It's the Jefferson Avenue project, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're in the process of doing that. In fact, at the June 24th meeting, we'll have to pass a resolution, because I have to have that project done by the end of September, or we start incurring fines, because the
Okay.
money sat there, so that's why.
Okay, so we had the money, we just now
And it's
have to.
been sitting there, and I was going through stuff, I called about this, and of course, last minute Louis were, moving
Okay.
all on it.
And then, so the DOT is gonna be that 20 grand that was zero last year, is gonna be a part of that, is something we're introducing as
That's all,
Jefferson?
yeah, and then we also, out here, Park Drive, we're also
The
doing that.
ADA thing with the
Yeah, we
bridge?
have, money to redo part of the bridge and do some, make the, bridge handicap accessible, and some sidewalk on the, west side of Park Drive.
Okay. The amount, that's just to pay off at the end of
Yeah.
what we already did, and the dam inspections we have to pay for, right? Okay.
They're actually, well, one of them's done already. The Woman's Lake was overdue, and that's done already. That was due
Well,
last
that was the, the major two that were sitting there from zero last year. But you're saying that's money that has to be spent because we had it.
Yep.
You're saying it's grants, actually.
Well, like the Jefferson Avenue, and out
So,
here,
the amount is a
the Park
grant.
Drive, yeah.
Okay.
What about the recreational park lights? I thought we were done with that. Is that the final payment or something?
Yeah, we still, we had some, that carried over from one to the next, and we still had some loose ends on there.
And that's still-
It's done now.
And that's the grant as well?
Yeah, all that's under the grant.
Grant.
I think that's all I picked up that jumped out at me. Like I said, it's very difficult to manipulate a money, manipulate a budget when, there's not a lot of money there that we have control over, that's not contractual or not mandatory.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne. Anyone else have anything for this? No. Okay, I will open it up to the public. This is matters to be presented by the public. I'd appreciate if we stay on topic of this discussion, which is the budget. I cannot mandate it. Please state your name and for the record. If any member of the public has a matter to be presented that pertains to housing and or police matters, please see Chief Martin. I will open it to the public now. On my right, your left, first row. Okay. Over to my left, your right, second row.
Good afternoon. My name is Louis Lofer from 370 South 1. I have a question about the contract. I thought you have a contract with the solicitor for, I think, $65,000 something for the whole year, for the whole contract. Oh, that's still intact.
Well, you did just hear the discussion that we had, and apparently we have no contract yet that we've received. So we're waiting to receive the contract that was approved at the reorg, and when we have it, we will be discussing it. So.
For this budget, are they going to use USC for the township budgets?
question. You mean UEZ funds? If there's UEZ funds in this budget,
Yeah.
right? You wanna answer that, Steve?
170,000.
Oh, Josh, there you go. What is it?
170,000.
It's 170,000 UEZ money in here.
Hopefully it's not more than like a million, or, you know what I mean, like the previous township people. I mean, the previous one using majority of the UEC budget was not happy.
Nope.
And what's the current township budget's debts? It's not $600,000.
It was up. Gardens project is 18.9, and then we have probably, how much more debt total, Chris?
What is it?
It's total debt. I mean, it would be 18.
Total debt? The total debt is $1,590,617. That's principal and interest on bonds, notes, and special emergency notes.
State the number again, please.
$1,590,000.
Now, that's, he's asking for the total debt that the township is in, as
Oh,
far
the
as all the
total
bonds.
debt.
That's the
Oh, I
debt
thought you were
payment
talking
service?
about the
That's
total
the
debt budget,
payment.
the total debt. I would say it's 18 million, about 18 million.
Well, Steve just said 18.5 for the gardens.
We were talking with Sherry, it was like 18.5,
That's right.
18.9.
So
Plus
we
whatever.
have no other debt than the gardens, is what you're saying?
Most of our debt is for the gardens, except there is a small, 1 million, for streets and roads, an ordinance that we did for streets and roads, but other than that, most of our debt is for the gardens or
Well, we also
the,
have emergency notes.
and the emergency notes
Right.
that we have for the emergencies that we had. The one for the reval, Hurricane Irene and Hurricane Sandy.
Two different
But the
hurricanes.
majority of our debt is for the gardens.
Oh, the overwhelming majority of it is for the gardens, but the total line item, total amount for the debts that he's asking, we don't have a specific amount right this minute.
It's got to be close to 19 million because our debt capacity is around 22.5. So.
Yeah, we only had 3.5 left.
Yeah, we had
so.
less than 3.5
Yeah.
left,
So
right,
it's
so.
generally around 19.
So we're around 19 million.
My final comment is, what would happen if you passed the 23 millions?
We can't without going to the Department of Community Affairs and asking for permission to exceed our debt capacity.
What was your question?
What would happen if you pass the 23 million mark?
Oh, our debt limit.
Yeah, we
How
can't.
much
They
we can
wouldn't
bond
allow.
to.
No company would allow it, and then we would have to go, if we knew we were going to do that, to the Department of Community Affairs at the state, and we would have to ask permission to go above our debt limit, and then the state would approve whether we could do it or not. Then we would have to go out to a lending source, but they know when they look at it, what our financial advisors wouldn't even let us try to do it because we can't.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Anyone else in the room?
I would ask permission from the mayor to just remain where I stand instead of stepping to a microphone that doesn't exist.
Go ahead.
I sound the same here as I do 5 feet to my left.
Just state your name and your
That's
address.
Tim Young, 158 Mill Street. I actually came here to wear a different hat, but due to conversation that was had by the council, a certain other hat has to be drawn out. So I speak as a member of the school board, certainly not on behalf of the board. The authority does not rest in me as a vice president to speak on behalf of the board. But the first thing I want to touch upon is that there was a conversation, I'm not sure if Mr. Belton was here for that, but there was a conversation had about the advertising, going out to bid for that. Just as an FYI, the school district does now have a policy on allowing advertising on its own property. So I thought I would extend an invitation to the council to perhaps have a few members meet with our ad hoc advertising committee to discuss whether we would be interested in some type of shared advertising type deal there. Outside of that, the bigger conversation for us, I think, was the conversation about deferring the tax payments. Like, wow, way to really like throw a side punch there. It's scary.
Sounds scary, right?
It's really scary. I mean,
Well, if you didn't have like 20 mayors that were all saying that it doesn't have any effect on the school board itself, and that's why, if you know something, now say it. What effect does it have if the payment isn't due until a certain point, and we know multiple articles during Medford's crisis that they were deferring on a regular basis, and yet you never had any statement from the Medford School Board or any comment anywhere on the Vent, the editorial page, anywhere, that there was a detrimental effect to the Medford school system, which is extremely highly rated, do you agree? You know, and they were deferring that tax. Now, again, I kicked it out simply as something that I brought back from a Trenton seminar, where it was put out there as a way to help the township meet its cost with no ill effect on the school district. But if you have any information that, the same as I asked for everyone, you know, in this room to give their input, if you or Skip after you has any information that counters that, then certainly, you know, it didn't sound like we were really interested in it anyhow.
Well,
but you know,
I
at
would
all
disagree with
costs,
that
yeah,
assessment.
we've got to look at the residents, that have to pay this tax increase and due diligence. At least I feel I definitely need to do due diligence to flesh out every single thing that I've heard. And I actually did not want to put that out there because it does sound like, we're not gonna pay the school tax. But looking at this tax increase, I really couldn't sit here and not put something out that I heard at a seminar that I took the day off to go to bring the ideas back here. And it would be like self-defeating of why, I went up there in the first place, was to actually learn something and bring it back. And the two topics of the day was cost savings to the township and energy aggregation, which we did the other night. So we covered the energy aggregation in time, we got to that, and now this is the timeliness of this next issue, which is the budget, in which that's the information I have. And I have notes on it, and I give you copies of the notes, and you can take a look. But do you have any information on that? Have you been to any seminars where it's a bit, what do you know?
Well, Mr. Rao is certainly going to speak a little bit more about what it would affect the district. So, I would just urge you that if it's something that you're considering, which it certainly seemed like the council was interested in pursuing the option. That's the impression I got sitting out here, was that you at least wanted more information on it. But I would highly suggest that you would at least sit down with, at the very minimum, our finance committee, which is myself and Mr. Grant, and our business administrator, or even your president, vice president here, before you make any kind of decision like that could seriously adversely affect our school district, especially with $1.2 million construction project that we have going on this summer. Certainly something so last minute, to decide now here in June that in July and August you may not want to, give us the tax payment that we were expecting. I would highly urge you to at least sit down with us, whether it's two members of your body or your entire body sitting down in an executive with us. So.
Well, to that, I'll just say this: I will not vote for anything that hurts the school. Period. So if it flushes out that it hurts the school in any way, shape, or form, then it's not the vote that I would go for, I would give to do anything that would in any way hurt the school. It was Rich DeFalco and I that pushed forward to have the school receive monies from the Gardens project. It has certainly been, past, position has always, been to not hurt the school district in any way, shape, or form. But you definitely bring up a good point now. That's all?
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Skip.
I'll ask the same thing to stand here, because generally I can be heard anywhere I stand.
All right, you know the name and the rec.
Yeah, it's Skip Real, 83 Walnut Street, and as president of the school. Mayor and council, good evening, first off, and I apologize that, Mr. Young sent me a text, and I came down. Statutorily, if your solicitor were here tonight, he would tell you that you're entitled to withhold 2 payments during the course of the year. We represent municipalities in my practice, and that's not an unusual occurrence. However, when you're having a discussion as it relates to withholding payments, the summer months are generally those that it's done because you don't have payroll. Except if you will recall, or your CFO will know, or your manager will know, we provide, at the time our budget's certified, we provide to the township the total local purpose tax being raised for school purposes, and the payment schedule, which this year is somewhere around $750,000, I guess, a month over the 12-month year. You're right, we don't have payroll in July and August. However, we have agreed and entered into contracts for necessary work at the schools, including re-roofing of Holbein, air handlers in both Brainerd and at Holbein that are necessary for the cafeteria operation, totaling about $1.2 million. We've only had a brief opportunity to speak to our business administrator this evening, which we just did outside, to try to ascertain what impact your withholding these dollars would have for us, because what you don't know, and what they may not have mentioned at the seminar you went to, is that the Department of Education, the state of New Jersey, also has a practice of withholding a payment over the summer of your state aid. Again, generally speaking, you don't need it for salary and benefits during the summer. Your staff's not there. They're on 10-month contracts. Well, your teachers are on 10-month contracts. The problem is that if you couple a withholding of a payment, which you're again permitted to do in the summer, along with the expected and traditional withholding of a payment by DOE, you put the board in a serious position where, one, we have a cash flow problem. Two, on top of which we don't have the cash flow to pay the contract, which quite frankly runs the risk, as I stand here tonight, outside possibility, we're defaulting on the contract because you can't pay your contractors. Now, again, we don't know what our specific numbers are, but the preliminary response from the BA when we asked Ms. DeGangi tonight what the impact would be, she says coupling the two would seriously impact our ability to move forward, though we don't know the extent. So while we appreciate on the board the fact that this township council, both yourselves and the prior members, have committed to sharing some percentage of the impact payments, the pilot payments from the gardens, and we appreciate that continued support from the schools. The reality is that we have worked very closely with this township council over, I guess, the last year in looking for spaces by which we could share services, share in purchases. As you know, we are contributing the funds for the township to essentially be able to employ a new police officer in the coming year. The current board members have made a 3-year commitment to that because we recognize our responsibility, and yes, we're going to be getting an SRO out of it at the other end, so we get something for our children. But I would clearly ask you, if you're seriously considering this, whether it be president, vice president, mayor, deputy mayor, whether it be the manager to the superintendent and the CFO to the DA, I'd ask you that before you commit to going down that road in managing your fiscal situation, that you sit down with us so that we can actually go over it and have a better idea of where we will both be, both as a board and as a township council, under not only your budget, but our budget and the fiscal constraints that we both find ourselves under. You know, it's one of those things where, as you all know, you want to basically try to start budgeting out for 3 or 5 years. We're trying to get to the same place. But for this to sort of spring up now as a possible alternative, not maybe even a viable alternative, but a possible alternative for the council, could essentially have some negative impact on us by way of being able to finish a project timely and have the schools ready for opening in September. So I join with Mr. Young in asking that, you know, before you take any hard and fast position in your budget as relates to what you do by way of a withhold. Essentially a delayed payment because you'd be picking it up later in the year. And that's something we all recognize. It's not where you're not gonna make it, you're just gonna make it later. We'd ask you to really just hold off until we've all had a chance to sit down, digest it, and see what the real impact's gonna be. And I thank you, Mayor.
Two things, Skip. One, I'm a little confused because my notes reflect that Christine earlier made a statement that we already have an arrangement with the school.
That's what the
With
regional-
RV.
RV.
RV does that because they don't have payrolls in the summertime. It's something that we worked out with them, or quite confusing, but it's with the regional school. And I don't know what their agreements are with the other townships. They may not do that with the other townships, so they may not be in the same position as the local schools, because they're receiving revenue from them during the summertime.
And to the other point, Dwayne and I are the subcommittee connected to the schools, and nothing would be done by this governing body, at least not by my vote, without consulting with you guys, and the two of us would sit down with at least two of you, you know, and again, I felt that it was my responsibility to bring forward whatever I have, you know, come across at you know, whatever event that I've gone through, anything that could be cost saving to the township. Floated it. It looks like it's the lead balloon that I figured it would be, actually, to tell you the truth. Dwayne took it apart, said there really isn't that much
Well,
we could
that
learn on it.
would be a question
You know?
that, Skip, it sounds like you know a little bit more about it than we do. What is the advantage to delaying a payment? What advantage is there?
Look, you know, your solicitor's not here, and he's the person who can answer that question for you. Look, realistically, what you're doing is, first off, it's not a bad thing to have the debate. It's never wrong to discuss and explore where you can find. Okay, let me answer the question.
Because we're not really interested in doing it unless there's a big advantage, an extreme advantage.
The only advantage to
So
you.
what is the advantage?
The only advantage to you is essentially, you haven't gotten a budget, you're working on the budget, you're not gonna be able to get you're gonna be getting your amended tax bills out late, all right, so that you're gonna be picking up your tax payments late, and what it does essentially is, it's the only thing it really does. It helps the municipality preserve its cash flow. I mean, that's the entire purpose for it.
So it doesn't create a revenue stream for us to capitalize on delaying the payment.
It doesn't increase the funds you're going to have at the end of the year, it's just giving you, it's like swinging.
Just the ability to use that money,
Yeah,
right?
it's like being short one month and you're gonna swing the payment to the next month is essentially what you do.
So we're not interested in that.
Okay. Well, all I say is that, look, it never hurts to discuss and have a realistic and in-depth discussion. I just ask you to basically, if it turns out that you really need to do it, see if we can work out some other arrangement.
You actually got like out of bed and then called the business agent?
No, well, if the Phillies had been on, I would've been home watching the Phillies.
Am I ever gonna be the end of this?
What?
You know?
It's, look.
It matters.
It was thrown out there.
You know, unlike the five of you, our constituents, for the most part, are under 4 feet tall. Okay?
I understand.
So when I hear this, Rich, I'm out.
I know,
Okay?
I know.
The other thing that he's talking about of using it for the cash flow, we do send out estimated tax bills, which we will be giving you at the next council meeting, a resolution to do that. We've done that for the last 4 or 5 years. We've done them as a regular basis with the budget being late, so that's how we alleviate the problem of having the cash flow problem.
Okay, all right, well, listen, anyone else have any, well, that's the whole room. I'll close the matters to be presented by the public and come back here to the council. Is there anything left to discuss?
I was just gonna say that the only reason you might have seen that we showed a little interest in it was because not all of us were at the seminar. We don't know what, this was the first time I heard of it, so to make a decision uninformed,
Frankly,
I'd
it
rather
scared me.
get more information. So if it came across as showing an interest, it's only to be more informed on the situation.
And I really don't know what the heck it's all